Here's why I built a custom GPT, or basically like an AI agent or mini version to diagnose shoulder injuries. And it's not to destroy everyone's livelihoods. It's to prove a point, which is that AI is very, very capable of rational clinical reasoning when fed the right information. And that's a really, really critical aspect, because if we're honest here, this stuff, like diagnosing certain problems, and I think the shoulder in particular is an area which physios just hate because it's complicated and there's lots of different tests and whatnot that we do, and we get overwhelmed very often, especially young therapists, trying to make the right diagnosis and trying to hold all these balls in the air at the same time. Now, after deep diving into shoulders many, many years ago for a number of years, because that was one of the main things I did when I was working in London, treating shoulders, seeing shoulders from multiple specialists being referred to me as well, not because I was the greatest shoulder physio, but because I put my hand up and said, that's what I want to do, and I want to learn as much about it as possible. The place I came to was the British Elbow and Shoulder Society, because I think they've got the best algorithmic model of how to diagnose. And honestly, this is literally what like every single shoulder specialist says as well, is to go through red flags, trauma, swelling, redness of the skin, or anything else that might be going on, or even an unreduced dislocation. These are just things you need to screen for as soon as possible. But beyond that, it's just going, right, is it neck or is it shoulder? And that's the cleanest and simplest way of just dissociating between the two straight away, just asking people to move. And from there, you go into, is there any history of instability, or do you feel it popping out of your joint? And within a few seconds, you've ruled out shoulder instability, and then it's just palpation of the ACJ, seeing if there's a positive cross arm test, or is there a high arc pain, which is pain like up in that 140-degree mark, which is a bit more classic for ACJ. I always used to do like a hand behind back test to see if you could reproduce that as well, but apparently you don't need to do that. But the big one, like the passive external rotation, if you can take that arm out to the side, that is a given when you've got that loss of range there passively, that you're probably looking at a frozen shoulder or some kind of glenohumeral joint OA. So that's the sequence of thinking through, which you can honestly put into a custom GPT, and it can do it from a subjective examination perspective. It's not going to be able to make a diagnosis formally, but it's going to be able to help guide people. And that's where there's opportunity to leverage that skill set, because guess what? Whether it's instability, ACJ, glenohumeral joint, frozen shoulder, rotator cuff tendinopathy, it all ends up at physio. That's the critical thing. Everything generally will end up at physio. If it's obviously traumatic instability, potentially that's not something you want showing up immediately at your practice, and that's better to go to ED, be reduced, etc. So what does this mean for physio? Why is this important? Well, if AI is able to be integrated into the diagnostic reasoning process at the consumer end, it means we have a high standard we need to meet. We need to be directing that within our own clinics as well to make sure we're hitting a really high standard within this. But honestly, we should be integrating AI into these processes, into our teaching even, because if it can be built with the same rigor that the high quality of diagnostic reasoning articles or CPGs can be built with. And that's something that is not happening at the moment with a generic AI model, because it's kind of modeled in with all this stuff, and it will have an idea of what's what, but the rigor is, if this happens, if something is traumatic and has happened, that has to go to hospital, or it has to be seen and investigated properly, and making sure that is really pushed firmly for everybody to understand. With all that said, the reason I'm talking about this is because in my last video, I was saying, look, I think AI is going to be able to do a big portion of the diagnosis aspect. That's a helpful thing for us, but I also think it means we probably need to get better with our hands-on skills and with our human-to-human communication, and I stand by that. If you're interested, we've got our next webinar, which is AI and the Future of Physiotherapy. This is on Thursday, the 31st of July at 12:30 p.m. with Barry Nguyen and myself, and we'll be deep diving into all of this stuff, what specifically AI can do to help your business. We'll go through how his Cliniscribe technology can boost it, and that's just the initial tipping point from here. But honestly, it's time to start tuning into this stuff because this field is moving at a rate of knots and you do not want to get left behind. Hope to see you in our webinar. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.